welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, October 8th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Bill Bank Greene himself. Bank, the Buckeyes have been offering some, I think, very interesting three-star prospects, in-state prospects recently, and we've seen guys like Robert Landers, Darren Lee. You know, when those guys get offers over the years, people are like, what's going on here? And, yeah, things turn out pretty well. But I want to start with Kevon Butler. He's the most recent defensive tackle. Kevon Butler from Toledo-Whitmer, of course, received an Ohio State offer over the weekend. He's committed to Kentucky verbally. Bill, tell the listeners about Kevon Butler and what you think will ultimately happen with him.
Well, and these Ohio guys are guys that I know really well. I mean, that is my job at 24/7 is to, rank, scout, evaluate the top players in the state of Ohio, and then I also do chime in on Ohio State. But primarily my job is to scout the top kids in Ohio. So Kevon's a kid I know really well. For Ohio State fans, I think a comparison would be Davon Hamilton. As a senior in high school, I think very similar players. Kevon is in a weird way, his recruiting, it was fun to follow. He is committed to Kentucky. I don't think he's ever been there before. Now, he may have snuck down there since he committed at the end of the summer, but when he made his commitment to Kentucky, he had not been to that school yet. So that was always looked at as kind of a, sideways kind of commitment. I don't think he's going to end up at Kentucky. I do think he's going to end up at Ohio State. The main threat here is Michigan State. It's not Kentucky, even though he's committed to Kentucky, and, that's recruiting in the year 2018. So it's really an Ohio State-Michigan State battle. He did have an Alabama offer. Whether they would take him or not, I don't know, but he went to their camp and did really well. So Kevon he can play. I mean, in my mind, there's no doubt there. And there's probably, maybe 4 or 5 D tackles in the state that I think could play for Ohio State. So, and, they're not getting Tyler Davis. They need a D tackle in this class. So, from Isaiah Gibson, Juwan Briggs, Cavon Butler, Rodis Johnson, there's a bunch of these guys. They can all play. They're all going to be good players in college. So I do think Ohio State will get Butler. And, like I said, I think he's a Davon Hamilton type player.
Offensive lineman J.D. Duplain from Strongsville. He received an offer from the Buckeyes, I believe, 6 days ago. I think it was like last Tuesday. He's committed to Michigan State. You think there's a good chance that he could flip to the Buckeyes?
I do think there is. I've got pretty good connection there to his family. And, his coach is saying, has told Michigan State and has told Ohio State that he's going to stick with Michigan State. The kid was supposed to visit Michigan State last weekend, and I think he did. But, I think Ohio State's going to get him. I think he's going to flip. And, the thing is, these things just don't happen overnight. These are kids that you have basically ignored for months. J.D. Duplain visited Ohio State last February, and nothing happened. So then you offer him in, October, then it's not like he's just going to take it, on the spot. It's not like, the fan part of people is, oh, my God, he got offered by Ohio State. You automatically accept it. That's not the recruiting world. You got to start relationships with these guys. They don't know the Ohio State coaches. They haven't talked to them for months. And, basically have felt dissed and rejected for months. So I do think they're going to get J.D., but I think you got to put some time in here, and I think you got to recruit these kids. Same with Cavon Butler. But I do think at the end of the day, being Ohio kids and looking at their individual situations, I think it makes a lot of sense for these guys, to come to Ohio State, get your Ohio State degree, become the best player you can be, and go from there. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, they offered Nick Samac was the first Ohio one to get offered, the O-lineman from Mentor. And you think that would be a slam dunk. He's committed to Michigan State, good friends with Noah Potter and Ryan Jacoby, and you'd think that would be the easiest one to get. I don't think they're getting him, and I don't think he's going to give them a sniff. So these are all individual, situations and individual decisions, and it's not quite as easy as what fans think. It's like, oh, my God, just got an offer. Why didn't he take it before he hung up the phone? doesn't work that way. Recruiting's all about comfort and relationships. And you've got to build that relationship, and you've got to make these kids comfortable that, you know, you want them, you need them, they're going to play, and, you know, not going to be recruited over in a year. So there's a process here. I do think they're going to get both of these kids, though.
Speaking of relationships and how things can change in recruiting, Sampson James, running back, obviously flipped to Indiana over the weekend. This tells me, Bank, I mean, Ohio State had to cool on him. I mean, this is my opinion. I don't have inside information on this. You might. You don't just flip from Ohio State to Indiana. I don't care if you're from Indiana. That just doesn't happen. Buckeyes had to cool on him, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
He's a really good player, and I think he can have a really good career at Indiana. If you look at kind of the comments and you read between the lines, I don't think he was dropped per se. Danny Clark was never dropped per se. I'm good friends with Danny and his family, and I can tell you Ohio State never dropped him. Todd Sibley was never dropped. But there's a way that you let people know that you're not real interested in anymore. And kids pick that up when you don't take their calls anymore. They can't get in touch with you. They don't get invited to games anymore. It's a sign that, man, things aren't going well here. And I think, you know, these kids have egos, and these kids, you know, want to feel wanted. They want to feel, you know, needed. They want to see a path to the field. And when you're not taking their calls anymore, that's a bad sign for a recruit. So was Sampson James dropped? No, absolutely not. Is Ohio State now fighting their butts off to get him back? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You go after Noah Cain. You go after Kenny McIntosh. You know, I saw Sampson James in camp last summer because I was there really to see the kid from Warren Harding, Kevon Adams. And Rutgers was scouting Kevon that day at Ohio State's camp. Chris Ash and all his assistants were there. Well, Kevon went through the same drills that Sampson James went through. And Kevon was clearly bigger, faster, stronger, quicker, better in the 40, better in the shot. It was just, you know, excuse me, if you didn't know the names and you just saw player A, player B, well, you would definitely think player B was the better player. So, and not that camps are the end-all, be-all, but, I mean, what I saw that day made me think Sampson James isn't the next Zeke Elliott. So, you know, did they cut the kid? No. Are they sick today that he's not in the class? I don't think so.
Yeah, it reminds me like in college if you were dating a girl and all of a sudden, you know, she might not have called you to tell you she was breaking up with you, but you'd call her and she wouldn't answer, she wouldn't return your calls, you know. Yeah, that girl's no longer interested in you, you know. Not that I ever had that situation happen to me many, many times in college or anything, but, yeah, so it's like relationships and recruiting or life, it's all the same.
And, David, you sound very, very in tune to that situation. I have to credit you there that, you know, I don't know that you're big into recruiting, but, you know, I don't know. You really have a great handle on this situation from prior experience, I think.
That's right. I wanted to be nice. I didn't want to say, like, you know, if you wanted to break up with a girl in college, you just wouldn't call her for a while. But, you know, I turned it around. But you mentioned, too, the guys I wanted to talk about, two running backs from Florida, Kenny McIntosh, University School, of course, in Fort Lauderdale, Noah Cain from IMG Academy. Break it down. What's the latest with those two guys? Who has a better chance of being in the class? Who do you like the best? Just break it down with McIntosh and Cain.
No, they're both excellent running backs, among the best in the country. Noah, you know, IMG, Ohio State's got that great connection at IMG. The IMG coaches have so much respect for Urban Meyer and the Ohio State program that automatically gives Ohio State a shot. Noah Cain, I think, is going to go to LSU. Now, we got to see, now that Ohio State is back hot on the trail and they can show him, you know, hey, there's no other running back here. There's Steele Chambers, who may end up being a linebacker. You got to see how Noah Cain reacts to this. And it's almost the same thing with Kenny McIntosh. Kenny McIntosh is someone I've gotten to know well from my contacts in Florida. And Kenny's dad's a great guy. Kenny's dad has relatives in Youngstown. They come up here often. So they're, you know, really in tune to Ohio State. Kenny loved Ohio State. They just kind of walked away from him, when they got Steel Chambers and Sampson James, and Kenny's like, you don't want me, that's cool. I'll find a school. And it won't be a problem for Kenny McIntosh to end up at, Oklahoma or Miami, somewhere great, because he's a great player. But now that Ohio State has reached out, this one could get really interesting for me, just because I know the family has wanted, they wanted Ohio State to really chase Kenny hard, and they really want to look into Ohio State. I think he'll visit, and that's going to get interesting. And if Ohio State can just pull one of these two, that would be a great grab, because these guys are both impact players. If I had to choose one for Ohio State, I think I would take Kenny over Noah, in this Ohio State offense right now. Kenny can catch the ball. Kenny can block, a little bigger than Noah, but Noah Cain's a great football player. So these two guys, if Ohio State could pull one of these two, that would be, that would improve this running back situation over what it was last week.
Before you get out of here, I want to ask you about the team itself. Buckeyes now halfway through the regular season. They are 6-0. They're ranked third in the country. All that's great, but I know there's been some warts. Hey, every championship team has to go through some stuff. No one's perfect, so I think I'm a little more bullish on this team than maybe some of the people on the message board are, although I do see some obvious problems with this team. Just wanted to ask you just your general thoughts on this team and kind of your confidence level going forward when you look at this 2018 Buckeye squad, Bill.
Well, I think they're in great position to win the East. I mean, Michigan is going to challenge them. That last game of the season is not going to be easy at all. But Michigan's got a ton of hard games coming up here. So, they may have two more losses before they get to Ohio State. Ohio State might be able to get to the Big Ten title game with a loss in that game. You just don't know, But Ohio State is really good, and everyone knows that they're really good. You look at last Saturday, they did not play their best. And it was probably pretty obvious that they weren't going to be at their best coming off that Penn State game. I mean, I think people talked all week that there would be a little bit of a letdown. It's only natural. These aren't robots or machines. So in a letdown game where you turned the ball over 3 times, didn't play real well defensively, you beat Indiana by 3 touchdowns, a 4-1 team. So, I mean, come on. This is not Clemson needing a miracle to beat Syracuse at the wire. This game was never in doubt. And, I mean, I think Indiana is as good a team as Syracuse is. So, did they play their best? No. Should they have played their best? No. No, it doesn't work that way. They're winning games and putting up a ton of points. Are there flaws? Yes. There are no perfect teams out there. There never are. Okay? Alabama won a national title last year, being shut out at the half, and they had to switch to a freshman quarterback. You do what you got to do to win, and that's what this team has done. TCU could have been a loss. They did what they had to do to win. Penn State could have been a loss. Down 2 touchdowns, 8 minutes to go, did what they had to do to get the win, and that's more what I like to see. That's how you build championship pedigree, is digging deep to win games in tough situations. It's not, had they beaten Indiana 72-3, that really wouldn't change how I feel about this team. I think the flaws are still the flaws that they need works on. But, the team they are on October 7th or 8th is not the team they're going to be, when they're playing for the Big Ten title a month down the road here. It gets better. So I think it was a total overreaction by people that are flipping out because they beat Indiana by 23 points. Definitely are things to work on. I mean, it's not a perfect team, but there are no perfect teams. So you work on your weaknesses, you build on your strengths, and you line up and play. But what I like about this team was the way they responded at TCU when there was a little trouble happening there, and the way they responded at Penn State when there was a hell of a lot of trouble happening there. They were in a tough spot at Penn State. I mean, they were stuck pretty good there. And Penn State is a really, really good football team, one of the best teams in the country. So that's what I look at more than, are they beating these teams by 30, 25, or 20, teams that are outclassed. The TCU game and the Penn State game really mean more to me than any other game they played this year.
Great insights, as always, from Bill Bank Greene. Really appreciate it, Bank, and really appreciate all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. Hope you have a great day. Let's hear the Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.